All right, let's talk about something that I think it's safe to say pretty much all of us deal with: procrastination. You know that feeling, right? You've got something really important to do, but suddenly, organizing your sock drawer seems like the most urgent task in the world. We keep telling ourselves, oh, I'll get to it later. And for a little while, that feels okay. But then, all of a sudden, later becomes right now, and that's when the panic kicks in. It's this whole cycle of delay and stress and a frantic rush to the finish line that we all know so well. But what if I told you there's a real, scientific reason behind it all? Let's dive in.
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? Why do we do this to ourselves? We're smart, we're capable people. We set goals, we make plans, and yet something inside us just slams on the brakes. Is it just pure laziness? A total lack of discipline? Well, the answer, it turns out, is way more interesting than that, and honestly, it's a lot more hopeful too. For years and years, psychologists have been fascinated by this question. Why do our brains so often choose a little bit of pleasure right now over a much bigger reward down the road? And it turns out it's not some deep, dark mystery. It's actually a surprisingly predictable pattern.
Yeah, you heard that right. Math. The key to finally understanding procrastination isn't about just trying harder or beating yourself up for having weak willpower. According to a researcher named Dr. Piers Steel, who has spent his career on this, the answer is, well, it's basically a formula. He developed what's called Temporal Motivation Theory, and it treats your level of motivation like a math equation. It suggests our drive to do things is predictable, and once you get a handle on the parts of the equation, you can actually start to change the result.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of this thing. We're about to break down the science behind why you'd rather spend an hour scrolling through social media than even start that big project for work. And this isn't just some abstract theory. This is like lifting the hood and looking at the engine of your own brain. This is your motivation formula. So here it is. This is the core of the whole idea. Your motivation for any task equals its value multiplied by your expectancy, and then that whole thing is divided by its delay multiplied by your impulsiveness. Now, I know it totally looks like something you forgot from a high school algebra class, but just stick with me. Every one of those four words, value, expectancy, delay, and impulsiveness, is like a lever you can pull that controls how driven you feel. Let's break down what each one really means.
Okay, first up, on the top of the equation, we've got value. This is basically the reward factor. How much do you enjoy the task? Or how meaningful is the outcome? Think about it. Planning a vacation probably has a really high value for you. It's fun, it's exciting to think about, but a task like doing your taxes, for most of us, that's got a super low value. It's boring, it's a chore. So the more value you can see in a task, the bigger that number on the top of our equation gets, and the higher your motivation goes.
Next to it on top is expectancy, and this one is all about your confidence. Do you actually believe you can succeed at this? If you're an amazing baker and someone asks you to bake a cake, your expectancy is through the roof. You're thinking, yeah, I can do this, no problem. But if you've never looked under the hood of a car and someone asks you to fix an engine, well, your expectancy is probably close to zero. It's that voice in your head that whispers, I don't even know where to start. When that voice gets loud, your motivation just plummets, no matter how valuable the task might be.
Now we move to the bottom of the equation, the things that kill our motivation. And the first one is a big one: delay. See, our brains are wired for right now. They want immediate gratification. The reward for working out is a healthier body, but that's months away. That's a huge delay. The reward for sinking into the couch and binge watching a show, that reward is instant comfort, zero delay. So the further away a deadline or a reward feels, the less real it is to our brain, and our motivation just fizzles out.
And finally, the last piece of the puzzle, our old friend, impulsiveness. This is your personal kryptonite for getting things done. How easily does your phone buzzing, or a new email popping up, or even just a random thought pull you completely off track? The more impulsive you are, the more power those little immediate distractions have over you. And you can see how impulsiveness and delay are like this tag team working together to wreck your long-term plans.
Okay, so theory is one thing, but let's watch how this formula actually plays out in a real-life scenario.
I want you to meet Sarah. Sarah is a student, and let's be honest, Sarah is basically all of us at some point. She's smart, she's totally capable, but she has a massive research paper due. And, yep, she's a world-class procrastinator.
So when Sarah first gets the assignment, the deadline is a whole 3 weeks away. In her motivation formula, that delay is gigantic. So even if the paper has some value for her grade, that huge delay on the bottom of the equation just crushes her motivation. Watching a movie, on the other hand, has almost no delay, so it wins, easy. Now fast forward, we're 1 week out. The delay is shrinking. The deadline starts to feel a little more real. A bit of anxiety starts to creep in. Her motivation slowly starts to climb. And then we hit 2 days out. Now the delay is tiny. The consequence of not finishing is immediate and, frankly, terrifying. Suddenly her motivation doesn't just rise, it skyrockets into full-on panic mode. She pulls all-nighters, she's stressed out of her mind, but she gets it done. The formula worked, but had a huge cost.
So if we're all a little bit like Sarah, are we just doomed to live in this cycle of last-minute panic? Well, no, absolutely not. Because here's the cool part. If our motivation is really just a formula, that means we can learn to fiddle with the variables. We can actually put ourselves back in the driver's seat. This isn't about trying to magically summon more willpower out of thin air. It's about being strategic. It's about learning how to hack your own brain.
The best way to think about this is that you've got 4 levers you can pull. To get your motivation engine running, we want to pull the top 2 levers, value and expectancy, up. And at the same time, we want to push the bottom 2 levers, delay and impulsiveness, down. By consciously making these adjustments, you can systematically build up your drive to get things done instead of just waiting for panic to be your only fuel source.
So how do we actually pull these levers? Here's your practical toolkit. First, to boost value, don't just tell yourself, I have to do this boring expense report. Reframe it. Tell yourself, I'm doing this to keep my business finances in order, which gets me closer to my goal of being my own boss. You have to consciously connect that tedious task to a bigger, more meaningful goal you actually care about. Next, to raise expectancy, make the very first step so easy it's almost laughable. You're not writing a 20-page paper. That's way too big and scary. No, your task is to open a new document and write 1 good sentence. That's it. That tiny little win builds momentum and proves to your brain that, hey, you can do this. Third, to shrink the delay, you have to create your own urgency. Don't let a big project due in a month just float out there. Break it down into 4 smaller goals with a deadline at the end of each week. This manufactures the pressure your brain needs to get going now instead of waiting for that future panic. And finally, to reduce impulsiveness, you have to be an architect of your own environment. Turn your phone on silent and literally put it in another room. Close all the unrelated tabs on your computer. Make it harder to get to your distractions than it is to just do the work. The amazing thing is, you have direct control over all 4 of these things. So as we start to wrap this up, I want to leave you with one last really powerful shift in thinking. So often, we see procrastination as a time management problem, right? We buy new planners, we download productivity apps, we try to schedule every minute of our day. But what if? What if we've been looking at the problem from the completely wrong angle?
This quote from Dr. Steel himself really gets to the heart of it. It changes everything. We don't put things off because we're bad with a calendar. We put things off to avoid negative feelings, the boredom from a dull task, the self-doubt from a hard one, or the fear of failing. And the formula we've been talking about, it's really a tool for managing those emotions. It's a way to make a task feel more rewarding, more doable, and more urgent.
So, the big takeaway here is that you have the power to change this cycle. It's not about magic, it's about math. It's about understanding the formula that's already running in your head and then learning how to adjust the levers. So, I'll leave you with this question. Think about that one thing you've been putting off. How can you tweak the formula? How can you boost its value, raise your expectancy, shrink the delay, or cut down on your impulsiveness around it, starting right now? What's just one tiny step you can take today?